Well, hello, FME friends. It is summertime here, and a good indicator of that would be my bright blue shirt. Another good indicator of time would be the FME DateTime stamper transformer, which we all know and love. So let me show you a few things that have gone on with date times in FME 23. So we're going to put a creator transformer down and then the regular DateTime stamper. Now, if I run this translation, by default, what I'm getting out of this is a timestamp with, if I can grab that edge, fractional seconds down to 7 decimal places. That's, I think it's 1/10,000,000th of a second, 100 nanoseconds, I think I want to say, 100 nanoseconds, which might be great if you're working with stream data that's coming in really quickly, or you're trying to measure the half-life of radioactive isotopes. Well, that's great, but often you don't want that. Often the nearest second is good enough for our purposes. And before now, we've had to come up with different ways of rounding that off. Now, in FME 23, we have a new option that says include fractional seconds, yes or no. And if I say no, well, you can see on the preview that they're truncated. So we don't get that. And there we go, no fractional seconds there. I mean, the other thing you might say is, well, I could do that with the attribute rounder and just round it off like that. But you couldn't if you included a time zone in there. That's not something you could round off with the attribute rounder. Let's see, where are we? There we go. So yes, it's rounded that off nicely for us there. Another thing as well is you might have data that's in a different date time format. And FME supports both ISO and FME format stamp. So we say the input format is FME and the output format is going to be an ISO date time with offset. Now if let's see, I'm going to include fractional seconds there. Let's see what we've got. Okay, well, you're certainly not going to round off the fractional seconds in that with an attribute rounder because it's just not going to see it as a number. Luckily, we have another new transformer in 23 called the DateTimeRounder. And that's what we've got here. So I can actually say, well, let's round off that timestamp to the nearest second, round down, and it will do that. Now, one of the things I've noticed about this, when you do that, my original timestamp started out as ISO format, and I've gone to FME format with that, which I've suggested to our developers. If something comes in ISO format, it really should come out in ISO format. So hopefully they're going to get that changed at some point. Otherwise, you'll be having to change back. But anyway, the point is that you notice whatever the time stamp that came in with fractional seconds, the DateTimeRounder let us round it off to the nearest second with no problem. So we truncated that. You might have also noticed that the other things it can do are round off in other units. So I could say round off to the nearest day. So basically, yeah, it's just going to truncate the time down to midnight, I would expect. Yeah, so it's the 2nd of June, midnight. I could round off to the nearest hour, which would be, we're in UTC, so I'm not quite sure what it would be. 3 o'clock, okay, there we go. So it's rounded off, it's got rid of the minutes and seconds, basically. I could also say round to the nearest 6 hours, which would be interesting. So I could say, well, round that down to the nearest 6 hours, and I think that will come back with 12. Yeah, because it's 12, it's 3 p.m. UTC, which rounds it down to the nearest 6 hours, will make it 12. So there's like 6 hour intervals. Midnight, 6 a.m., 12 p.m., 6 p.m., back to midnight. So yeah, you can round at different values. You can round days, hours, minutes, even seconds. I can say round to the nearest 10 seconds. So we have all of these functionality there to round things off and just make it a little bit easier to deal with dates and times. Now, obviously, if we've got that as a transformer, we've probably got it as a function somewhere as well, and indeed we do. So if I put an attribute manager down, let's have a look. The rounded, we'll go with the value in here. We've got the DateTime functions and we've got DateTimeRound, so we can round things off. And it always helps to look up the DateTime functions in the help, just to get an idea of what this does and how it does it. So DateTimeRound, which we'll find here, it's looking for the date time, it's looking for the type, as in up, down, or nearest rounding, the unit, days, hours, minutes, seconds, and the interval. So the same settings as in the transformer, we're just putting it in the function, and we can bury that inside the attribute manager. I do notice one of the things it says there is the interval. The value must be an integer that divides evenly into the maximum value of the selected unit of time. So the example it gives is you can divide minutes by 5, or you can round minutes by 5 because that divides evenly into 60, but you can't round minutes by another value. So if I tried, for example, to round to the nearest 10 minutes would be fine, because you can get 10 minutes in 60. But if I try to round to the nearest 7 minutes, I don't think that's going to work. No, there we go. We got a error message in the log. DateTimeRound, invalid interval. Interval for minutes must divide into 60, which is yeah, very interesting. I'm not sure why we don't have a rejected port on there. Maybe that's something I'm going to have to talk to the developers about, see if we can get a rejected port on that, because it does make sense that we would reject and not just stop the whole translation. So I'll raise that. The other thing that just occurred to me, and I haven't tried it, is what would happen if I said 7.5 minutes? Okay, no, it's not letting me even do that. It must want an integer number in there. Okay, so I can't divide by 7.5, even though that would divide into 60 just fine. Anyway, so we have the DateTime stamper with its fractional seconds option now. We can turn that off. We have the DateTimeRounder. We have the DateTimeRound functions in Attribute Manager or wherever. And yeah, so even if the format is an ISO format and something like that, we can round, the DateTimeRounder will round that off quite happily, like to nearest 5 seconds. So yeah, a couple of things that I think we could improve on. But for the most part, that's fantastic. That really solves a lot of problems I've had with using date times in FME before. So yeah, I hope you found this demo interesting, and I hope you you get something out of that, because it really is a nice piece of functionality. So yeah, enjoy. And I'll see you later in the week for another live stream as well, twitch.tv/Manitoba Mark, and that will find you the our live streaming. We stream on a Thursdays at 12 p.m. Pacific time, so hopefully that works out in your time zone more or less. Okay, thanks again. See you soon.